The air in the corridor was thick with smoke and the sharp smell of burning wires. Red emergency lights flashed, throwing long dancing shadows. The deep thud of enemy fire hitting the ship's hull was a constant drumbeat. Each impact shook the floor under Leo Cruz's boots. He stood braced behind a melted support beam, his rifle hot in his hands. The whine of its power cell was a warning he ignored. Around him, the last of his Marines fought and died. Their shouts were cut short by the precise silent energy bolts that came from the other end of the passage. The enemy was the Stellar Compact. They were not monsters. They were men and women, but they moved like machines. Their polished white armor was untouched by the grime of the battle. Their faces, visible through clear helmets, showed no anger, no fear, nothing. They advanced in perfect steps, their weapons firing with a calm, logical rhythm. They called his people biological anomalies, flaws to be corrected. "Fall back to the life pods," Leo yelled, his voice raw. "Go." A young soldier, Ben, was too slow. A blue bolt caught him in the chest. He fell without a sound. Leo fired a long burst, not aiming to kill, just to make the compact soldiers pause for a second. It was all he could ever get, a single second of their time. He backed away, stepping over the bodies of people he had shared meals with just hours before. His cybernetic arm, a dull gray piece of military gear, whined as he reloaded. The hangar bay was just ahead. Through the huge cracked window, he could see the battle outside. The black of space was lit by the fire of dying ships. It was a burning graveyard. He reached the last pod bay. The large outer door was already closed, the small room packed with terrified crew members in orange suits. A woman, a pilot named Maya, saw him and hit the button to close the inner hatch. "Wait!" someone shouted. Leo shook his head. "Close it," he ordered. His job was to make sure they got away. The heavy metal door slid shut with a final hiss, sealing him out. A moment later, he felt a deep vibration through his feet as the pod launched. He was alone in the corridor. The sounds of the compact's advance grew closer. He turned, ready to make his own last stand, and looked out the hangar window one more time. His blood went cold. The Terran flagship, the mighty Ares, was the heart of their fleet, and its bridge module, a giant spire at the ship's top, was exploding. Silent, beautiful fire bloomed against the stars, tearing the command center into a million pieces. Admiral Vance was on that bridge. The old man was more than a leader. He was a symbol. He was the one person who knew how to fight these perfect logical enemies. With him gone, the fleet was just a body without a head. As Leo watched the enemy's own flagship, a smooth and silent ship called the Perfection, move through the wreckage, it ignored the other dying Terran ships. It turned slowly, its sleek shape blocking the view of the stars. It was coming for the Ares' main hull. It was coming to finish the job. Leo turned and ran. He found a single, damaged escape pod tucked in an alcove. He wrenched the manual release and threw himself inside. The pod was tiny, meant for one person. The door sealed behind him. He hit the launch button. Nothing happened. He hit it again. Small screen flickered to life. "A hull breach in launch tube," a calm computer voice stated. "Ow." Launch sequence aborted. The pod was stuck, trapped inside the dying ship. Through the small viewport, he saw the Perfection fill the sky. A bright glow began to build at its front, where its main weapon was. Then, a new alarm blared inside the tiny pod. A red light flashed on the control panel. It was the oxygen warning. The air in the pod was leaking out. He was stuck, alone, and running out of time. Leo's vision was getting dark at the edges. He clawed at the pod's panel, his fingers clumsy. The red oxygen light was the only thing he could see clearly. The air was thin and cold. He was drowning in the void. Then, a violent jolt shook the pod. A terrible grinding noise screamed through the metal. For a second, Leo thought the enemy ship was crushing him. Instead, the pod was moving. It was being dragged. A mechanical arm had locked onto the pod's hull. It pulled him through the shattered launch tube and out into the chaos of space. He saw the burning hull of the Ares slide away. The pod was reeled in like a fish into a dimly lit hangar bay. The outer door sealed behind him with a boom. Air hissed back into the small space. Leo gasped, his lungs burning. The pod door was pried open from the outside. A man looked in, He was not a soldier. He wore a stained jumpsuit. His face was tired and unshaven. He held a heavy wrench like a weapon. "You alive in there, soldier?" the man asked. His voice was rough. Leo stumbled out of the pod, his legs weak. He stood in the hangar of a small, beat-up ship. The place was a mess of stored crates and old machine parts. The air smelled of grease and recycled air. "I'm Leo," he coughed. "Frank," the man said, not offering a hand. "That was a stupid risk. Pulling you out painted a target on my back." A young woman walked down a metal ramp. She had a tablet in her hand and a skeptical look on her face. "His pod's transponder was still active, Frank. The compact will have heard it too. Need to go now." "This is Chloe," Frank said, moving towards the cockpit. "She's the brains. Just fly this junk heap." The ship, called the Odyssey, was old and loud. Its engines groaned as Frank pushed them. Leo stood on the cramped bridge, watching the stars streak by. The wreckage of the Terran fleet was far behind them. "Why did you come back?" Leo asked. Frank kept his eyes on the screen. "I'm a scavenger, not a monster. I don't leave people to die," he glanced at Leo. "But it might get us all killed." Chloe was working at a console, her fingers flying. "I pulled a data core from the wreckage near your pod. It's from the Ares. It's badly damaged." "That's Admiral Vance's ship," Leo said, his voice low. "I know," Chloe replied. "I'm trying to get into it. There might be something useful, a weakness." Suddenly, an alarm blared. A red dot appeared on the main scanner. It was closing fast. "Compact frigate," Frank said, his voice flat. "They found us." The Odyssey shuddered as a blast of energy passed close by. The enemy ship was sleek and fast. It looked like a predator. Ow. Its weapons glowed. "They're faster than us," Chloe yelled. "They're locking on." Frank swung the ship hard. Another blast rocked them. Warning lights flashed across the controls. Leo held onto a rail, his mind racing. He watched the enemy ship on the screen. It moved with perfect, predictable grace. It anticipated their every evasive move. It was like a chess player, always 3 steps ahead. "They're too logical," Leo said suddenly. "They predict your moves." "No kidding," Frank snapped, pulling the ship into another turn. "No, I mean it. Stop flying like you're supposed to. Be random. Be chaotic." Frank looked at Leo like he was crazy. But another near miss shook the ship. He cursed and grabbed the controls. He stopped trying to outthink the enemy. He just flew. He threw the ship into a wild, spinning, unpredictable pattern. It was a drunken stumble through space. The enemy's shots started to miss. They were no longer perfect. The frigate hesitated, its firing pattern breaking down for a moment. "It's working," Chloe whispered, amazed. At that moment of quiet, her console beeped. She had broken through the final layer of encryption on the data core. "I'm in," she said. "It's the Admiral's last log." She played it. Admiral Vance's face filled the screen. He looked old and tired, but his eyes were sharp. He was speaking quickly. "I found it," the Admiral said. "The Archon there, Command AI, has a flaw. It can't process true sacrifice. It's an act that offers no logical gain. It sees it as a system error, a glitch. We can use this." The transmission ended abruptly. The screen went dark. The 3 of them stared at the blank screen. As the idea hung in the air. A flaw, a chance. Then a massive impact hit the Odyssey. The lights flickered and died. The main engine sound sputtered and went silent. Frank slammed his hand on the dead controls. "Engine's gone. We're dead in the water." Through the front viewport, they saw the compact frigate move closer. It was no longer firing. A long metal docking tube extended from its side, reaching for the Odyssey's airlock. They were not going to be destroyed. They were going to be boarded. The ship was quiet, a tomb adrift. The only sound was the heavy clang of metal on metal as the enemy docking tube locked onto their airlock. The red emergency lights painted their faces in blood-like shades. Frank was at the engineering panel, his hands frantic. "I can give you power to the internal comms for maybe 60 seconds. That's it. Life support is failing." Chloe held her data tablet like a shield. Her knuckles were white. "They will dissect us. They will take the core. They will learn what we know." Leo stood by the armory locker. His movements were calm, but his mind was a storm. He saw Admiral Vance's face. Asterisk, it can't process true sacrifice. Asterisk, the words echoed. He looked at the damaged combat exosuit hanging in the locker. Its power cell was cracked, leaking a faint green glow. Unstable, he had a plan. It was a bad plan. It was the only plan. He turned to Frank. When I give the signal, vent the plasma coolant from the port side vents. All of it, Frank stared. That's inside the hangar bay. It'll flash freeze everything in there, including you if you're close. I won't be in the hangar, Leo said. Pulled the heavy exosuit from the locker. It was scarred and battered, just like him. He looked at Chloe. He reached over to the console and picked up a half-empty cup of synthetic coffee he had left there earlier. He held it out to her. Hold my drink, he said. Her eyes went wide. She took the cup, her hand trembling. She had no words. Leo climbed into the exosuit. The servos groaned as the suit sealed around him. He moved to the main corridor that led to the airlock. He could hear the high-pitched whine of a laser cutter on the other side of the door. They were coming through. He positioned himself directly in front of the airlock. He didn't raise a weapon. Instead, he opened a panel on the suit's chest. Wires spilled out. He grabbed two and held the bare ends in his metal hand. The airlock door glowed red-hot. A circle was cut out of it. It fell inward with a crash. 4 compact soldiers stood in the opening. Their white armor was pristine. Their faces were calm. They raised their weapons in perfect unison. They saw one man, unarmed, standing before them. It made no tactical sense. It was an error. Leo slammed the 2 wires together. A blinding white flash erupted from his chest. The localized electromagnetic pulse was not a weapon. It was a scream. It was chaos. It washed over the soldiers. It did not hurt them. But for one single, precious second, their network systems stuttered. Their targeting systems flickered. Their shared tactical view dissolved into static. The perfect logical rhythm of their advance broke. They froze. Now, Frank. Leo yelled into the cum. A deafening hiss filled the corridor behind the soldiers. A cloud of supercooled plasma gas erupted from the wall vents. It enveloped the compact borders. The moisture in the air turned to ice crystals. The soldiers, caught completely by surprise, were instantly frozen solid. Their white armor was coated in a thick, glittering frost. They stood like statues, trapped in a moment of confusion. The EMP had burned out Leo's suit. It was dead weight around him. He struggled to move, pushing against the stiff joints. Stumbled back toward the bridge, the heavy boots clanging on the floor. He saw Chloe and Frank staring at him, their faces a mix of shock and relief. They had done it. They had survived. Then the entire ship shuddered. A deep, resonant hum vibrated through the hull. It was not their engine. On the main viewport, the compact frigate filled the screen. Its docking tube retracted. Along its side, a long, massive barrel began to glow with a dangerous blue light. It was powering its main particle cannon. They had defeated the boarding party, but they were still a sitting duck. The frigate was done playing games. It was going to blast them into atoms. The blue glow grew brighter, aimed directly at the Odyssey's bridge. The blue glow from the frigate's cannon was the only light on the bridge. It painted their faces in a cold, dead color. Frank's hands were frozen over the dead controls. Chloe stood rigid, her eyes fixed on the weapon that was about to end them. Leo ripped himself free from the dead exosuit. It fell to the floor with a heavy clang. "The virus," he said, his voice rough. "The one from the Admiral's log. Can you send it?" Chloe blinked, breaking her trance. "What? They'll just block it." "No," Leo insisted. "Don't send it to their computers. Send it to their people, their commander. A personal message. Make him see it." Understanding dawned on Chloe's face. She spun to her console, her fingers a blur. "The Archon analyzes all command channel data. If I package it as a high-priority prisoner interrogation file, it will have to look." She began stitching together data, the recording of Leo's suicidal EMP blast, the Admiral's last words, and raw, chaotic human sensory data she pulled from the ship's medical archives. Pain, fear, laughter, the noise of being human. "It's ready," she said, "but I need a target. A name." Leo pointed at the massive enemy flagship, the Perfection, visible in the distance. "Send it to the one in charge." On the bridge of the Perfection, Commander Valerius watched the tactical display. The loss of the boarding party was a statistical anomaly, a minor irritation. prepared to give the order to destroy the small, insolent ship. An alert chimed on his private terminal. A data packet, flagged as a priority intelligence intercept from the frigate. Subject: analysis of illogical combat behavior. He opened it. It was not a clean report, it was a storm. His screen flooded with the violent, nonsensical act of the soldier overloading his own suit. He heard the raw scream of a human in pain from a medical log. He saw a flash of a child's birthday party, a memory pulled from a dead Marine's personal files. He felt the dizzying rush of irrational joy. The Archon, seamlessly linked to Valerius's mind, tried to process the data. It searched for patterns, for logic, for a tactical advantage. It found none. Conflicting, emotional, and self-destructive nature of the information was a poison. It was pure chaos. Error messages bloomed across Valerius's display. System integrity warnings flashed. The Archon's perfect analysis faltered, overwhelmed by the illogical flood. Valerius felt a strange pressure behind his eyes. A feedback loop, created by the Archon's struggle, was affecting his own enhanced neural link. His heart rate increased. His breath caught. He tried to dismiss the data, but the Archon was trapped, cycling through the impossible contradictions. A single warm drop of liquid traced a path down his cool, perfect cheek. He touched his face. His finger came away wet. A tear. A biological response to a system error he could not control. He had not cried since his enhancement as a child. He stared at the moisture on his glove, utterly horrified. On the main display, the weapon status of the Perfection flickered from arm to standby. The Archon, fighting the viral chaos, had automatically shut down non-essential systems. The flagship was blind and disoriented. On the Odyssey, the bright blue glow of the frigate's cannon faded. The weapon powered down. Frank let out a shaky breath he didn't know he was holding. It worked. You crazy son of a gun. It worked. But their victory was small. The frigate was still there, its engines humming. It was wounded, not dead. And the Odyssey was still crippled. Frank checked his panel. His face fell. The engine core is critical. It's building to a breach. We have maybe 5 minutes before this whole ship goes up. Leo looked from the dead frigate to the dying Odyssey. He saw the massive, silent shape of the enemy ship so close to them. A new, terrifying idea began to form in his mind. Leo looked at the crippled frigate. It was a massive, silent predator, floating just off their bow. Then he looked at Frank. "Can you get us moving? Even a little?" Leo asked. Frank shook his head, his eyes on the core breach warning. "The engine is a bomb now. Any power I feed to thrusters will make it blow faster." "That's the idea," Leo said, his voice quiet. "We ram them. We use the ship. We take that frigate with us." The bridge went silent. Chloe stared at him. Frank's mouth opened, but no words came out. They both understood. It was a suicide run. "The core breach will be big," Frank finally said, his voice hollow. "It might crack their hull open. It's a good bang for our buck." Chloe hugged herself. She looked young and scared. "There's no other way." "They're stunned now," Leo said. "Not dead. In a minute they will reboot. It will kill us. Then they will kill every other Terran ship out there. We can stop one of them. We could stop." He walked over to Chloe. He reached out and took the cup of coffee from her hand. It was cold now. Lifted it and took a long, final swallow. He did not look at them. He put the empty cup down on the console. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Frank turned to his panel. His hands were steady now. He rerouted all remaining power, bypassing every safety. The Odyssey shuddered as its maneuvering thrusters fired, pushing the dead weight of the ship slowly forward.
Ow.
They began to drift toward the frigate. The enemy ship grew larger in the viewport. He could see the fine details of its hull, the scars from past battles. It was a tombstone coming to meet them. 30 seconds to impact, Frank said, his tone flat. "The core won't last that long." "Leo," Chloe said. He looked at her. It was a good try. He gave her a single, sharp nod. At the last moment, Leo turned and moved fast. He hit the button for a small, hidden compartment near the floor. A debris scatterpod, barely bigger than a coffin, slid out. It was meant to look like wreckage to escape sensors. "What are you doing?" Frank asked, confused. "A lesson has to have a teacher," Leo said, pulling the pod's door open. "Tell them what we did." He climbed inside the cramped, dark space. 20 seconds. Frank yelled. The pod door sealed. Leo felt a violent lurch as the pod was ejected from the Odyssey. Through the small viewport, he saw the old, beat-up ship continue its slow, fatal drift. It looked small against the vastness of the frigate. Then light, silent, blooming sun of white and orange fire as the Odyssey's core breached. The explosion consumed the scavenger ship, and then the frigate next to it. Metal and fire twisted together. The frigate's hull cracked open like an egg, vomiting its insides into the void. Leo's pod tumbled wildly, spinning through the cloud of hot debris. The viewport was a blur of light and metal. Alarms blared inside the tiny space. Then, everything went dark. When the spinning stopped, his sensors slowly came back online. He saw the battlefield. The compact fleet was in disarray. Their perfect formation was broken. The loss of the Archon's primary node and a frigate had created a hole. A crack in their armor. He saw Terran ships, which had been fleeing, now turning. They saw the opening. They saw the chance. They began to fight back. A signal chimed in his pod. A Terran destroyer was hailing him. He was being rescued. Later, he stood on the clean, bright bridge of the destroyer. Officers looked at him with a new respect. They called him the man who broke the Archon. He slapped his back. They talked of a victory. Leo did not feel like a hero. He looked out the viewport at the retreating enemy. He saw the faces of Frank and Chloe in his mind, lost in the fire they had chosen to light. He had won a battle. He had taught the enemy to fear a simple phrase. But the war was not over. It was just beginning. He turned from the stars, his face hard. The first lesson was over. Now it was time to write the rest of the manual.